So this is my friend's balcony. And as you can hopefully tell, it is very beautiful here and very relaxing to just stay here. And they're letting me sleep here, well, inside, for a couple of days, so I thought I'd return the favor and build them something nice to go along with the balcony. This is a table they currently have for their couch area. It is on wheels and it's nice, it's rustical, DIY-y, but I thought it could do with a better tabletop, because there are slots here in the pallets and, you know, it's functional but not very pretty. As you hopefully already saw in the beginning, I'm gonna go for a combination of wood and cement for this tabletop. And this is hopefully gonna complement the rest of the balcony nicely, and also gonna be good practice for me, because I have another project in mind that I want to do afterwards that includes cement pouring. So the first step in this project is prepping the wood. The way I bought it, it is one big plank that is flattened but not perfect. And what I want to do is cut it down the middle. Now, the table saw I have available here is not great and there's no fence, so I'm going to need to clamp a piece of wood to it to be able to have a smooth cut. And since wood I'm using does not have a straight edge, I'm going to screw some piece of plank to it so I can have a straight edge that I can then guide along that fence. So the main idea here is to get a straight cut down the middle that is also perpendicular to the sides. So when I flip them outside, I still have a nice square. So that cut went extremely well. I did not expect it to go that well. Also the edges are all still perpendicular to each other, which also is a huge relief, because I don't have a miter sled for that table saw and I don't want to build one. But I don't have to, because they work fine. Now you may have seen that there was a crack in the middle of that board and I tried to cut it out, but on this end it still shows a bit and I'm gonna have to sand it out, I think. Maybe I'll round it over a bit, we'll see later. The whole thing is supposed to look relatively organic, so it doesn't really bother me that much. But it would have been nice. Maybe I could have taken a second cut to make the slot a bit wider. But still, I'm very thankful for that result. Now the next step is going to be taking the bark off, because that's not going to look well with the cement, at least in my opinion, I think. And after that, I can start assembling the form.
Now the bark actually didn't come off as easily as I'd hoped, so I had to resort to sanding it off. And I didn't get all of it, but I figured, what remains there will also remain there for the remainder of the concrete pouring. Plus I got to try out my new battery-powered orbital sander, and I am very happy with that. The mold itself is just a simple box made with 12mm malamine. And I sealed all the edges with silicone, clear silicone, and then just screwed the pieces together. I didn't pre-drill them, which resulted in some splintering along the sides, but it doesn't really matter. And I actually should have used 18mm melamine, but I think I'll have to remember that for the next time, because this is done. So, without any reinforcement, the two side panels would just break off of the concrete after curing. So I decided to buy some, I think this is 10mm steel rebar, and cut that into 3 pieces. And here you can see me mark out the position of 6 holes, which I'm gonna drill out shortly with an 11mm, so slightly bigger drill. And that is because it's really hard to drill these holes perfectly, because as you can see, the edge I'm drilling into is live edge, so there's not a flat spot that you can drill into. But it still needs to be perpendicular to the edges and parallel to the sides, so that extra millimeter is just basically extra insurance. So here you can see me using construction adhesive to actually glue these rebar steel reinforcements into the holes. And the adhesive is not only used because I'm hoping this will adhere well to both the metal and the wood, but also because it has volume and should be able to absorb that extra millimeter of tolerance that I had before. And the holes don't line up perfectly, which was kind of expected, but it's not really a problem because I can just use the mold itself and rubber mallet to force them into position, and once the construction adhesive cures and the cement is in place, there should be no wiggle room at all. So for the actual concrete pouring, I enlisted the help of a friend, and it's not as much as he knows what he's doing, but it's more that I need someone to share the blame with if this goes wrong. But it actually went very well. So we mixed the concrete in smaller batches, so we have more control over how much water and concrete to add, because we were still experimenting with it. And after the first 1 or 2 layers, we added this mat, which is just fibers, and they're supposed to help reduce crack development in the concrete when it cures and when it's under load later. I don't think it's super necessary in this case, but I figured if I'm experimenting, might as well do it right. And the concrete itself was very thick. We tried to keep it on the thicker side, not add too much water, because I heard somewhere that the more water you add, the weaker the concrete gets. And with the help of the rubber mallet and some vibrations, we actually got it to a very flat and smooth state. And you can see us here looking at it and being somewhat proud of ourselves, and then realizing all the mess that we made. And here is the finished pour. You can see that the surface is wet, and after this shot was taken, I actually covered it with a plastic foil and let it sit for 3 days while keeping it moist all the time.
So after an excruciating 3 days wait, the time of the molding was finally there, and you can't really see anything on this side, but the second, third and fourth side you can see that it actually came out quite smooth, and yeah, it feels smooth to the touch. And in this scene you can actually see that the transition is not quite perfect, but it's pretty good for the first attempt. And since I used most of a 30 kilo bag of cement plus all the water, I actually needed some help to turn that over. And this was also the big moment to see if it would break apart on a crack. But we got it over pretty easily, and then when lifting up the bottom plane, it actually turned out that the cement, the concrete, sunk a bit, and the mold gave a bit, but it's still very smooth and good result overall. So here you can see the edges, all pretty nice. And after another 2 days of letting it dry, I think 1 day, and a good sanding, I actually sealed the wood with a mixture of oil and wax and a bit of coloring to give it a rustic look and match it with the rest of the furniture. And that should not only protect it from moisture, but also from scratches and other abuse that it will undoubtedly suffer. And here you see me covering the second side, and you can see the contrast between the cement, which is still very light, and the darker wood now is really coming together, as well with the rest of the wood on that balcony. And you can see the grain structure, and where I tried to smooth the concrete to wood out with sanding, it didn't quite work, but I'm still very pleased with the results. And that's it. Here you can see the finished table. It turned out really well, and I think they really liked it. I should have actually sealed the concrete as well, and I told them to do it, but I didn't have any more time there. So I just hope it got done so it's sealed against moisture as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did and have any questions, feel free to ask. See you next time.